This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Sarah Combs, Executive Director and CEO of the University Area CDC in Tampa, is a dynamic and outgoing leader, someone who gets it in terms of leadership and articulating her mission and vision. We write often about leaders like Sarah at the Business Observer. To read those and more stories, subscribe. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, Managing Editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Sarah Combs, Executive Director and CEO of the University Area CDC. Sarah, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. So we're going to get into what the CDC is and your career, and you've done a lot of really interesting work in nonprofits and leadership, and I want to hear more about that. Before we get into that, we're going to get the audience to know you a little bit with 3 rapid fire questions.
Ooh, I love these.
How many hours of sleep do you need a night so that you're not cranky the next day?
8.
8. So you need a solid 8.
I need a solid 8. Do not wake me before 8 or I will be cranky, and no one wants that.
Do you normally get that?
I do.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Good. I like it. 8. Okay, this is a debut rapid fire question. You're the first one to get this one. What, if any, phobias do you have?
I have a phobia about birds attacking me because I had that happen as a child. And so whenever I see birds flying around my head, I get a little freaked out.
Really?
So that's the only phobia that I have.
Birds actually attack? Wow, that obviously as a child, so that's a little bit traumatic because you still remember it today.
It still and that speaks to trauma, right? Like things that happen in your childhood that really affect you today. So I when I hear those birds and they kind of swoop down, I'm a little unaware.
Yes. All right. So stay away from birds and Alfred Hitchcock movies. Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. All right. Last question. What is the longest plane ride you have ever been on and to where?
Sydney, Australia. Very long plane ride.
Yeah.
But it was worth every hour and all those jet lagged hours because it's a beautiful place to visit.
Awesome. All right. Excellent. Good. We're going to get into a little bit. Before we get into the University Area CDC and what the mission is, tell us about you, your career. You've done some other things in nonprofits. Just tell us kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I'm a farmer's daughter from Colorado. So grew up in a tiny little town in the very southwestern corner of Colorado called Dove Creek, Colorado. And our claim to fame is that we're a pinto bean capital of the world. And that's, pretty darn important in the area that I come from. And so I grew up just, knowing how important hard work and determination was. I worked on the farm growing up. And I think that really instilled in me how important it was to really have a good work ethic. And then I was drawn to nonprofit work. I was always drawn to giving those individuals or groups of people a voice that really didn't have a voice. So, I started working at a nonprofit foundation in college. I worked my way through college and then was just called to nonprofit work. So I've been doing it ever since and just really feel like that's where the good Lord is directing my steps to make sure that I have an impact in, serving those who need it the most.
So growing up on a farm, what was that like for you? I mean, were you working at sort of a young age? I mean, I've talked to other people that grew up on farms and it's sort of a transformative experience, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about the experience you had as a young girl and growing up on a farm.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that you would learn about other kids that weren't, that weren't farmers or didn't grow up on a farm, and you'd be so jealous of their life because, for us, it's like getting up and going and feeding the rabbits or, making sure that you have to get the snow off of, the pins and things of that nature. And it was hard work. And so Ever since I can remember, I was, in the bean fields, working long hours. I mean, I started driving a tractor when I think I was 11. I was driving a vehicle when I was 12. So, I mean, it's just a different lifestyle. But I think the key to it all is just how you pull together as a family and really make sure that everyone's doing their part. Everyone has a job and they have to have a job in order to make it work. And so, there's nothing that you can really prepare yourself for that unless you go through it. And I often find myself, I have 3 children, and I often think, how do I instill those same morals and values that I learned on a farm growing up in my children who live in the city, and you just can't, right? But you can share those experiences through story. And that's the best that, I've been trying to do is helping them learn that.
100%. I mean, not that I did not, I grew up on Long Island, like the ultimate suburb, so nothing like a farm whatsoever. But I have the same challenge with our 16-year-old. My wife and I were just talking about this last night, that he's too coddled, right? Like, we've made it too good for him. How old are your kids?
I have identical twin boys that are 10 and a little girl that's 12.
Well,
So we're busy.
Yes. But it's that challenge, right? You want them to know, you want them to succeed, obviously, but you want them to know that struggle and that thing that you talked about somebody has to do this work. Somebody has to feed the rabbits or open all those things that you have to do.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what I've been able to do with my kids, which has been wonderful, is I take them to work with me. So, at the University Area CDC, we have so many opportunities for volunteering, developing new programs and building new facilities. And so, they come right alongside with me, and I've been able to really transition them into community work that way. And I feel like they're learning the value of hard work through these experiences. So, it's not the same, but I try to take every opportunity to help them understand how important it is to help others and to pay it forward.
Absolutely. All right. So there's a little segue. You mentioned University Area CDC. Tell us sort of the elevator pitch. What's the mission and vision of the University Area CDC?
Sure. University Area CDC is dedicated to driving comprehensive community development work in the university area right outside of the University of South Florida. Our work focuses on empowering residents through affordable housing, education, workforce development, youth programs, and cultural arts initiative. Essentially, we're all about transforming lives by transforming neighborhoods and ensuring that every individual and family has the opportunity and support and resources to thrive.
And you've been there for several years, almost 10 years?
Almost 15 years.
15 years. Wow.
Quite some time.
Time flies. What sort of attracted you to the opportunity? Take us back to that part of your career.
Yeah, well, when I was recruited to, for this position and wasn't interested in leaving where I was, but I was interested about this community that was right outside of University of South Florida. And I live pretty close to this area, and I had no idea what this area was. I'd never been through it. I've never really heard people talk about it. And so it was just curiosity that led me to come out here and take a look. And when I drove in the community, I was, I saw the need. The need was extremely great. However, I saw the opportunity. I thought, oh my goodness, there's this community that's just been stuck in time and just needs someone to champion it, someone to put a little bit of love and dedication into it. And, I just saw what it could be. And, 15 years later, we truly are transforming the community. And the key is we're doing it with residents, not specifically for residents.
Yeah, no, you all have certainly done a lot and made a lot of progress. And but you also have a connection to USF. You're an assistant professor there. Tell us, I think at the Muma College of Business, tell us about that and that role there.
Well, I was fortunate to get my doctorate degree a couple years ago from USF, go Bulls. And so ever since there, I've been a guest lecturer in several different classes in the College of Business. And I tell you what, that opportunity is just so great. I actually taught a class last week. And, I get so much out of teaching that class because I get to hear from, the youth that's going to be in charge of, probably taking my job at some point, right? And I get to hear about real world questions that they have, and also share the experiences that I've learned, not just working in, the university area community, but also being a student as well. So it's always so fulfilling to be able to give back and then also receive ideas and input from students. It really keeps me grounded.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's great. And it sounds like you're having a good experience where you're impressed by the students, not like, oh, look at these kids today, right? It sounds like you're more impressed with what you're seeing on the college campus.
I tell you what, I walk away every single time with a new idea that one of those kids has given me. So I mean,
Excellent.
and sometimes we actually really implement them and they become a program or something. So,
That's great.
I'm not too shy to say, hey, I'll take your idea and I'll run with it.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to shift a little bit to leadership. In your role, you've had to promote people, hire people. Tell us about leadership characteristics. What stands out in your mind when you're looking to promote or hire a leader? What are good leadership characteristics?
I believe that, effective leaders are empathetic, they're self-aware, they're definitely committed to growth. I think that's really important, not just the growth of themselves, but also of, the people that they're managing, their specific teams, leaders who are truly, caring and want to listen to build trust and respect. I think that drives collaboration and innovation. A good leader really does have the courage to make tough decisions and is transparent about the reasoning behind them. So, really opening up the book to say, this is the decision that I made and this is why I made it. And, that it's our job to grow future leaders. And so I take that very seriously in our organization.
Yeah, how have you evolved as a leader doing some of those things, whether it's, being transparent, making those tough decisions? Those are things that stand out in your mind that you learned a lot from that helped you evolve as a leader.
I've learned by failing. I mean, honestly, and I think I talk to my staff a lot about creating an environment where it's okay to fail as long as it's taking a calculated risk that you can take and as long as we fail forward. And so I often talk about how, we learn so much more from our failures than our successes. And so we have to embrace that failure is part of growth. And if you're taking a risk and it's a calculated risk that you can fail, there's sometimes where you can't fail, right? It's an environment where you can't do that. But most oftentimes you can create an environment where you can take a risk, and if you fail, you'll fail forward, and then you'll be able to create a better product because you'll learn from it. And so I really talk about how it's okay for us to fail. It's okay for us to, make decisions that maybe aren't the best, but how important it is to analyze that, to talk about it, and to grow from it, because that's how we grow, and that's how I grow as a leader.
Is there an experience one or two experiences stand out in your mind that you learned the most from in terms of a failure or a setback?
Oh, absolutely. We created a real estate arm and created a land banking program called Harvest Hope Properties because in our community, we have about 95% rental. So we know that we need home ownership, and there's this power imbalance where residents don't feel like they have the power. So we needed to acquire land and give it back to the community to build whatever they felt was necessary in the community. So we had 7 acres of land in the heart of the community, and I just was like, housing is always such a need. So that's what we need. And, me assuming, right, sometimes we make these assumptions because of our lens and our perspective. And then when we had a community conversation, we talked to residents about the 7 acres of land. And it was in one of the highest crime statistic tracts in the community. The community was like, absolutely not. We don't want any more housing. We want a park. We want a place for our neighbors to meet each other, to form that collective efficacy that's missing. We want a healthy place to be able to connect with each other. And so I was so wrong. And I think I learned so much from that. I really realized that my perspective, my lens is not the same as residents who live in this community. And I use that example often because often we think we know the best, right? Like we have these great ideas and we do it to our staff, or we do it to the community because we came up with it. But it's so important to get that feedback and that buy-in from the residents or from the customers that are experiencing it firsthand. So that was a really good lesson for me.
Yeah, that is. And it sounds like, as you mentioned, you got to be humble, right? You got to be able to understand, no, we're going to do this. I know this is better. I know. But it sounds like you took a step back and said, geez, well, we could listen better next time.
Yeah. I mean, I think as leaders, sometimes, we have to humble ourselves and stay grounded. That ego sometimes wants to get in the way. And I think we have to be very careful to check that. And for me, it was like, oh, I was wrong. And it's okay to admit you're wrong. Like, I don't know where, we started to infuse this idea of that, like, leaders are always right. It's like, absolutely not. And I think when we're able to be transparent with our staff or our community or our customers to say, hey, I was wrong, I'll be the first to admit it. But how can we correct it? How can we make it right? I think oftentimes people will receive more from that than they would if you were right. So yes. I think there's opportunities there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Switching gears a little bit, tell us about mentors. Who have been some of your key mentors in your life, and what have you learned from them?
Oh my goodness, I've had such amazing mentors that really came in at just the exact moment that I needed them in the exact like area of expertise that I've needed them. And I've just been so thankful to be able to walk alongside great businessmen, actually more men than women, to be quite honest, that have just came alongside me and said, "Hey, let me help you out in these areas, or let me give you some advice," or most of them have been my board chairs. But some have been completely unrelated to my work that have just, I've created a relationship with them and then really been able to connect with them on a regular basis to, bounce ideas, give really complex challenges to them that I've had and help me find solutions. But I also think it's important that as, I talk about my mentors, that I also pour into others. And that piece is so incredibly important for me because I wouldn't be where I am today without my mentors. There's absolutely no way. They paved the way for me. And so it's my responsibility to be able to do that for others. And so, I at all times probably have at least 3 to 4 individuals that I'm mentoring, and they all look different. Some are very formal, some are very casual. But I think it's our responsibility as the leaders to do that.
Yeah, the casual mentorship thing is interesting. We had a banker on this podcast on a recent episode, and he talked about some of his mentors or just people in his office that you wouldn't necessarily assign him as a mentor, but he learned a lot from them by watching them work or handle a certain situation. Those, as you mentioned, casual mentors are kind of that unheralded mentorship.
Well, and I think that's a really important point that you make. Like, oftentimes you don't even know you're a mentor to someone. And that's why it's so important for us to, as leaders, to make sure that we are doing our best every single day and that we're walking with integrity. And, if we're going to talk the talk, we better walk the walk because people are watching. And we can make really impactful imprints in their life just by being who we are. And, it's really cool when you get to hear those stories because they don't often have to happen. But sometimes you get to hear, like, you don't know how much of an impact you made on me. And you're like, what? It was just very casual, but those have impact. So it's pretty cool to hear those stories.
Yeah, is there a specific piece of leadership advice that you've heard from your mentors or just in general that sticks out with you that you use in your career?
I would just say biggest thing, lead with integrity and serve with humility. And regardless of what your job is, what you're called to do, it's just so incredibly important because people are watching and they see your actions, your words, how you treat others, and that servant leadership. I just think it's so incredibly important, especially in this day and age when we have so much division.
Yes.
It's like lead with love, lead with kindness, treat others how you want to be treated. And it's really pretty basic.
Yeah. You talk about people are watching you, right? Leadership is parenting is leadership. Leadership is parenting. And you have 3 young ones. They are a sponge, right? I don't know what stage they're at in terms of if they still think you know what you're talking about or now you have no clue what you're doing. But a little bit younger than 10 and 12 is when they're really absorbing everything you say and do.
That's absolutely right. My 10-year-old still think I know what I'm talking about. My 12-year-old, oh no, I don't know anything. She doesn't hear anything that I say. And I've learned, here's a key tip that I've learned. Find who she does listen to and give them feedback. So I have a niece that's in law school and she just thinks she hangs the moon. And so I give her some advice to give, to share with my daughter, and my daughter listens to it. So, you have to be tricky because mom doesn't know anything at that age. And I think it's only going to get worse, unfortunately.
No, so true. Our 16-year-old, same thing. Hears it from me or my wife. It's meh. But if he hears it from our buddy Jay, who's basically saying the same thing and has a 17-year-old daughter, it's gospel. Whatever Jay said is amazing.
Hey, we'll take whatever tricks we can get. That's for sure.
Yes. Excellent. All right. So as we're recording here in early March, Sarah, what can we expect from the University Area CDC the rest of 2025? What's new and exciting, and what are you looking forward to?
Oh, we have big, exciting projects that are coming out of the ground. We're very excited. Probably most about 2 developments. We're building a cultural campus across the street from our 7-acre park that we built in the community, one of the only private parks in Hillsborough County. So the cultural campus, we're actually working on building our warehouse, which will host an array and assortment of programs, legal, immigration, health and wellness, a place for our cultural arts artists to be able to call home. And then the really exciting news is we just got awarded a $15 million grant to build our new economic development center. And so that is going to be an amazing asset to the community to help small businesses. We're also going to have a healthcare component. And then the other property that we're building development is university townhomes for home ownership. So those are really 3 key developments that are coming out of the ground. And, it's going to really just help not only change the trajectory of the community, but also really change lives. And that's what we're all about here at UACDC.
That's amazing. That $15 million, it's a big deal. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's great. Yeah. Excellent. Sarah Combs, Executive Director and CEO of the University Area CDC. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.